So your insurance client cancels their life insurance or insurance policy. What do you do about it? What I'm going to be talking about in today's video are the exact steps I recommend to my predominantly final expense and Medicare agents on what to do to conserve that policy ultimately from causing you a chargeback and losing that client. My name is Dave Duford, owner of Duford Insurance Group. I train and recruit agents nationally to sell final expense Medicare and annuities, both face-to-face and over the phone. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe and like the video, and thanks for watching. So what we're going to be talking about today is exactly what steps to take in order to prevent a lapsed policy from causing you a chargeback, but more importantly, to make sure that your client still retains and keeps the valuable coverage that you originally sold them. So one little story to kind of demonstrate a bigger picture here is that we immediately think sometimes that when something bad happens that it was intentional or that it was meant to cause us harm, and that we get angry before we know all the facts, right? We have to really spend time to an extent before we decide to exact judgment, right? I think it's a good life rule. Before we know all the facts, okay? And the reason I'm bringing this up is that early on in my final expense insurance sales career, I had a number of lapses, and my perspectives about lapses were, these people are deadbeats. If they're not going to keep up with their payments, why would I want to keep them? And it sounded good in theory. It was a stroke to my ego to relieve the responsibility of really discovering why things happen and why people do what they do. And I was at a point in my first year running leads during, I think it was Christmas time, and didn't have a lot of leads. So I decided, well, what the heck, I'm going to go back and see some of these people that lapsed me and just see if I can win some of this business back over. And it turns out that of the 10 lapses or so I had, 5 of them I was able to save. And I saved them in the sense of it was a while back that their policy canceled. I didn't save the exact policy, but when I went to see them, what I discovered is they lapsed not because they didn't want it, but because they just weren't good handling their own money. They forgot the payment was coming out. Maybe the third fell on a Saturday, they got paid Friday, and we took it out on Monday because the weekend was closed down. We didn't have Social Security deposit going back then. And it was unintentional, it was a mistake. But I assumed the worst. I assumed they're deadbeats, as opposed to just a simple human mistake. And I even had people who said to me, David, I thought you didn't want me as an insurance client. And I was like, what? Like we approved you on the phone. We got you approved. And this one lady in particular, she was a $90 a month policy with Texas Life Insurance, I think is who I was writing with. And I lost the deal. I mean, I had the deal, but because stupid old me got in the way, I lost the deal, right? So the moral of the story here is don't assume the worst right out the gate. Sometimes people make mistakes unknowingly and they assume the worst, right? And when everybody assumes the worst, nothing gets done constructively. So take a step back, take a breather, and understand, I would say 1 out of 2 of your lapses are just mistakes. They didn't mean to lapse them. So that's the reality of lapses. Understand that a lot of the times they're just unintentional. They weren't meant to happen that way, but it ended up that way. So what do you do about it? So first of all, you should always get in touch with your lapses right away. The last thing you should do is wait for them to go further and further since the lapse happened. Again, remember, you might have somebody who is in a position where their health changes, right? And if you don't get back in touch with these people quickly, they may not be able to apply for a new policy if that's what you ultimately do. Also, if enough time passes since the lapse in order to catch the policy up, right, it may require 1 or 2 additional premium payments, which for final expense, in my experience, is hard to keep somebody on the books like that. So follow up as quickly as you can. You need to be of service to them. That was part of your sales pitch. And help them out. Now, what do you say when you get them on the phone? I always just said, hey, this is Dave Duford. I'm your insurance agent. I'm just checking back in with you. I noticed you didn't make your payment on your policy, and I just want to see what I can do to help you. And I leave it at that, and then they tell me, oops, it was a mistake or something else. So again, 1 out of 2 of these are mistakes, and all you have to do is just re-up the plan, catch the premium up, maybe pay double the following month. A lot of companies will do that. If they can't make the premium up, it might be easier just to rewrite a new plan with the same company or a different company. But you can save a lot of those lapses if you just pick up the phone and dial, okay? Now, but what happens if the client did it intentionally? What if they canceled it? Well, so what will happen a lot of the time, sometimes people will say, well, I'm in a bind financially, or one we heard the other day was something like, we can't afford it anymore. My husband's breaking up with me or some stuff. Well, that doesn't secede or negate the fact that they're going to die and they got to pay their burial expenses, right? If anything, it's more reason to have it. So some things you can do, you can see if the company can reduce the face amount to reduce the premium, because some coverage is better than no coverage, right? Worst case scenario, they can lapse the plan and then maybe pick up another policy instead. That's another option you can do, and maybe a smaller policy. But at least make that offer to them. All of the big brand name companies, when they're trying to conserve policies from replacing or canceling, offer this same thing. So if the big guys are doing it, probably would work well for us too. The last thing that you need to be concerned about is what happens if the person is replacing you. Now there's the thing. Well, the first thing you would think of is, why are they replacing us? Now, if you are selling an overpriced captive company named after an American president, okay, you might be in a little trouble because of pricing. But a lot of us out there who are watching this are independent, and we can shop around for our clients. So the first thing you want to make sure is, are you giving your client a good value for their money? Are you giving them a competitively priced plan? If you're getting a lot of people replacing you, you're probably writing bad coverage that is inadequate for the client, and there's better deals out there. We in my company don't have big replacement issues like others out there. And there are other carriers, agencies, you've heard of them, you know what I'm talking about. They push these overpriced, independent type of companies, but they're easily replaced. And if I name names, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they don't talk about this because it would not be good news. So make sure you're selling competitively priced policies. I don't care what they say. Some people say price doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't to close it, but it does to keep it. 3 to 6 months down the line, your client doesn't care that, your business relationship and connection, they've forgotten most of it, and all that matters is what are they paying and are they getting the best deal? Because some other guy's going to come behind you and you got to be prepared, right? So you got to make sure that is attended to as well. But if somebody calls in to replace you, it doesn't necessarily mean the policy is better. So what you need to do is say something like, hey, okay, you're going to replace. What I need to do is stop by, get this form filled out, and just make sure that it's completely kosher, that your policy's canceled, everything's good. Now, what that allows you to do is get back in the door or get back on the phone and have a conversation of why they replaced their coverage. So here's the things, ladies and gentlemen. Some replacements are legit. Okay, some aren't. Some are kind of a scam. There's a lot of situations where people replace, and it's not the best deal for the client. The agent comes in and lies about the plan. They write it at a non-smoker rate when it should have been a smoker rate. The client doesn't know. They just trust people generally willingly, and then they find out that they get screwed. But they would never have known that this was the case unless you showed up or got on the phone and had a conversation with them. So make sure that you're doing that, because you're going to save a lot of policies just by, getting back in front of the client and figuring out what the deal is. Don't get discouraged because you're replaced or the client says replace. You got to see what the deal is that they got, because you're working for their best interest, and people make mistakes, and you can't blame them because salespeople are good. They learn how to be convincing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're ethical. So always follow up on every lapse. That's the moral of the story. Number one, never let any of that go to waste. Number two, don't assume the worst, okay? Lapses happen because of stupid accidents. Lapses happen because of dumb decisions and dumb mistakes, because the client doesn't know the full picture. That's why we're there. That's why agents will always have a role in this business, because we can help them understand something that they otherwise would miss. So don't let those lapses go. Use that as an opportunity to get back in front of them and help them out, and a lot of the times you will. If you want to learn more about joining the Ford Insurance Group that get this kind of training, there should be some links somewhere up here or below. Click the link to learn more about joining the Ford Insurance Group. And thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.